Hello everyone, welcome to Unacademy, India's largest online learning platform. Let's crack UPSC CSC English. Now, before I talk upon the right strategy that needs to be chalked out to crack this prestigious exam, let me introduce myself. My name is Alok Oja. I have been associated with the field of UPSC since past 6 years. I have done my engineering from Pune. I have done my engineering from Pune. I also hold the experience of giving the SSB of CDS twice. I also have given the exam of CAPF. I also hold the experience of giving Uttar Pradesh PSC and EPFO exam. I hold the experience of mentoring more than 10,000 students since past 4 years. Now, before I talk about the right technique that needs to be chalked out, let us understand this platform. Let us understand this platform. Now, there might be question in the minds of the students why one should choose Unacademy as a platform for online learning. So here are the ample of reasons that why one should choose Unacademy as a platform for online learning. First of all, you'll have daily live classes on Unacademy platform where you can directly interact with the top and dynamic educators of India. Are you getting the points clear? Like Unacademy offers you assimilation of top and dynamic educators of India on a single platform. Secondly, the most important aspect, the students can directly interact with the educators and clear their doubts, clear their queries. Second most important aspect is whenever one is preparing for civil services, an aspirant needs to develop that sort of competence. Why? Because aspirant is not only competing with the aspirants around him, he's competing on pan India basis. Are you getting the points clear? I'll give you a very small example for that. Every year, almost around 8 to 9 lakh forms are being filled up for the UPSC exam, out of which 3 to 4 lakh students appear for the prelims exam, out of which 10 to 11,000 students qualify the prelims exam, out of which 3,000 to 4,000 students give up the what we say like clear the mains exam, and finally 1,000 odd students make into the final list. If I filter it down, how many students filled up the form? Approximately around 8 to 9 lakh students. How many students got into the final list? Approximately around 1,000 students. So can you understand that almost around one aspirant is competing with 800 to 900 other aspirants. And in that case, aspirant needs to develop that sort of competence within him. So how can he develop that competence? He can develop that competence by analyzing his preparation. And how can he analyze that preparation? By going through quizzes, by going through test series. And Unacademy as a platform offers test series and quizzes to the students. Third most important aspect is all the courses on Unacademy platform are highly structured in nature. There is a proper timetable through which the courses are being conducted. And finally, one can have unlimited access to the courses on Unacademy platform. Here are the few top educators of India from whom you can learn through. Unacademy offers wide range of subjects. As you know very well that UPSC encompasses different order of subjects like history, geography, polity, economics, international relations, current affairs, optional courses, and so on. Please subscribe to Unacademy and use my code AKOUS to avail the benefits. I repeat, use my code AKOUS. Now let's get started. Hope so. Everybody knows this person who is flashing on your screen. Isn't that so? His name is Acharya Chanakyaji. Now, gone are the days when you confine yourself within four walls and prepare for civil services. In like previously, you might have heard that everybody needs to boggle up for almost around 8 hours to 10 hours on daily basis. Then and then he's going to clear the UPSC exam. Gone are the days, my friend. Now, Hard work alone won't suffice. Strategy alone won't suffice. You require a mix of both. That is hard work and strategy. Like give you a quote. Now, this quote was given by a Chinese warrior whose name was Sun Tzu. He gave a very wonderful quote. Now, listen to the quote very carefully. If you know yourself, but not your enemy, you will lose at least one battle. If you don't know yourself nor your enemy, you will lose all the battles. But if you know yourself and your enemy, you will lose no single battle. This is same about UPSC. If you have to crack the UPSC exam, right strategy needs to be chalked out. Now, previously I have told you about the competence, like 1,000 students make into the final list. And how many forms are being filled up? 8 to 9 lakh forms are being filled up. So what about the rest of the students? Aren't these students hardworking? No, they are hardworking, but there is something called as lack of proper guidance, lack of proper direction, lack of proper strategy. That is why UPSC exam requires strategy that needs to be cracked out. Are you getting the points clear? Now let us understand the importance of a strategy through a story. During my entire course of history, I'll be using a very simple pattern. I'll be using a very simple model, that is SFC. We'll try and understand each and every aspect through SFC pattern. That is story, fact, and concept. Because I believe that story is such a format through which a student can easily remember the facts and concept. Isn't that so? Whenever you are watching a movie, you remember each and every dialogue of the movie. You remember each and every song of the movie. Some people also have the good, what we say, essence of remembering the lyrics of the song. Isn't that so? Why? Because the entire movie is in the format of a story. So, in the entire course of history, we are going to follow a very simple pattern, that is SFC: story, fact, and concept. So, let us understand the importance of a strategy through very simple story. Now, listen to this story. It is quite interesting story. Okay, you'll get to learn something new from the story, as well as the story is quite interesting. Listen to the story. It is said that when Chanakya was born, he had a symbol of snake on his teeth. Few days later, an astrologer visited his home, and Chanakya was playing outside his home. The astrologer met his mother and said, "If your son has a symbol of snake on his teeth, either he'll become a big minister or he's going to become a great king." Instead of being happy for that, his mother started weeping. She started crying. Chanakya came in and inquired his mother, "Why are you weeping? Why are you crying?" Her mother told him the entire story about the astrologer. So Chanakya said, "You should be happy that your son is going to become a king. Your son is going to become a big minister." His mother replied, "If you become a king or a minister, you'll have lot many enemies." Chanakya immediately took up a stone and broke his teeth. What does this exemplifies? This simply exemplifies that Chanakya never had the greed for power. Chanakya never had the greed for money. But few years later, he became a minister in the court of one of the major rulers of India, whose name was Dhananand. Dhananand was the last ruler of the Nanda dynasty. This we are going to study in ancient history. Nanda dynasty ruled over the region of Magad, which is nothing but present day Bihar. Are you getting the points clear? So this person, Dhananand, was the ruler of Nanda dynasty. He was a very cruel ruler. He was a very greedy ruler. He imposed all sorts of taxes on his subject. And rather than spending these taxes, after accruing the taxes, rather than spending these taxes for the welfare of the subjects, he spent these taxes to sponsor his lavish lifestyle. Now, the people were very anguish about his king, and they came to Acharya Chanakyaji and requested him to please explain Dhananand. Acharya Chanakya went to Dhananand and told him that you are a king. You should look about the welfare of the people, rather than imposing all sorts of taxes on the people. Dhananand became so angry that he humiliated, insulted Chanakya in the entire court and said, "You are a Pandit. Do your work of Panditai. Please do not teach me how to carry on any sorts of public welfare works, how to run the administration." He was so humiliated. Few days later, Chanakya again came back to his king, Dhananand, and said, "Please follow your Rajya Dharma, because you as a king are not following your Rajya Dharma." He became so angry that he kicked Chanakya in his chest. You might have seen the picture of Chanakya that he has a small sort of a knot over his over his head. Does everybody know that? Yes. So his knot, when he kicked him in the chest, his knot got unbundled, and Chanakya immediately took the vow. Until and unless I destroy your kingdom, until and unless I destroy your ego, I won't be revealing my face to you. And Chanakya left Patliputra and reached a place called as Takshashila, which is in present day Pakistan. Here he met a 14-year-old boy whose name was Chandu, whom we refer as Chandragupta Maurya. Everybody knows this person. He gave all sorts of scripture as well as warfare skills. He taught him all sorts of warfare skills and equipped him with all sorts of administrative skills. Now, at that point of time, Alexander was attacking India. And Alexander was not only the great rulers in the region of Greece, he was one of the greatest rulers of the world. He had the vision of conquering the entire world. Now he was moving towards India. Chanakya requested Chandragupta Maurya to go and join the Alexander's army because he believed that this person is a great king not only because of hard work. He's a great king because he has employed various strategies during his battles, during his war. So go and learn these techniques, go and learn these strategies. Chandragupta Maurya joined the Alexander's army and learned all sorts of techniques from the Alexander. Now, Chanakya is also referred as Kautilya. Kautilya in Hindi means Kutnitikya, expert in all sorts of politics. Now, Chanakya tried to use the system of politics here. How? Now, he tried to spread the rumor that the gods and demigods of India are very angry with Alexander and his army. Alexander was not that superstitious person, so he did not believe in this. But his army, who was war weary, who were very tired because since past 6 years they were fighting a war. Now they wanted to go back to their homeland. Now this person, Alexander, without conquering India, went back to his country. Now Chanakya and Chandragupta Maurya were quite overconfident. Now this person, if we have defeated Alexander, who is Dhananand, without any proper planning, without any proper strategy, these two attacked the kingdom of Patliputra. By the evening, they came in the nearby village and settled there. Just they were saved by few. Like it is said that they were like they could have been killed up, but still they were saved up and they came up in the nearby village and settled there. Now Chanakya saw an incident. A mother was feeding a child with a khichdi. This child directly poured his hand into the center of the plate and his hand got burnt up. What his mother said to the child, "You are a fool like Chanakya. Instead of putting your hand directly in the center of the plate, eat it from the circumference so that it becomes cool as well as your hunger will suffice." Chanakya immediately realized his mistake and he came up with a new strategy which is called as Saptang theory or Mandal theory. Saptang theory or Mandal theory forms the basis of even present day administration. This theory we are going to study in ancient India. So, after what we say implementing this strategy, he created an army of 7 lakh and then he attacked the kingdom of Nanda dynasty. He attacked the kingdom of Magad and dethroned the last Nanda ruler, Dhananand. And there came the rise of a new empire called as Mauryan Empire. Now, Didn't what we say Chanakya do any hard work? Didn't Chandragupta do any hard work? But what was lacking initially? Strategy. So, whenever you are preparing for an exam like civil services, you need to understand that right strategy needs to be chalked out. Until and unless you have a proper strategy, it is impossible to crack this exam because you have a very hefty competition here. So, I have created a very small strategy, very simple strategy. Now, those people who face problems with creating timetables, like we are expert at creating timetables, isn't that so? We create a timetable for today, then we tear up that timetable and create another timetable tomorrow. Then we create a timetable for a week, and within 2 days we tear up that timetable again. Isn't that so? Why? Because sometimes our timetable are quite hefty in nature. They are very heavy in nature. Now, I'll give you a very simple timetable. I'll give you a very simple strategy for civil services exam. Listen to me very carefully. You might have heard from your seniors that until and unless you study for 10 to 12 hours on daily basis, you cannot crack this exam. I'll give you a very small example. Suppose that you have made a target that each day you are going to study for 10 hours and you will keep Sundays off. Monday to Saturday, you are going to study for 10 hours on daily basis. And Sunday, you are going to keep an off. 6 days, how many hours now? 60 hours. On Monday, you study for 10 hours. On Tuesday, you study for 10 hours. Wednesday, you skip the studies. Thursday, you skip the studies. Friday, you skip the study. And again, Saturday, you'll study for 4 to 5 hours. Now, you had made a target initially of how many hours? 60 hours of the entire week. You reach the target of how many hours? 25 hours. Your morale will come drastically down. Are you getting the points clear? I'll give you a very simple strategy. Just make a target of 5 hours on daily basis. 5 hours is not a big deal. 5 hours on daily basis, Monday to Saturday. 5 into 6, how many hours? 30 hours. Keep your Sundays off because your brain needs relaxation. Isn't that so? Watch movies or go out for a walk, whatever you want to do on Sundays. Are you getting the points clear? But it should be done only when you have consistently followed your timetable for the entire week. Just make a target of 30 hours and that is 5 hours on daily basis. 30 hours for a week. Okay? You, I'm 100% sure that you will cover up 5 hours very easily on daily basis. Why? Because 5 hours is not that big deal. And in the entire week, you have made a target of 30 hours. You smash the target of 30 hours. I'm 100% sure for the next week, you'll make a target of 5.5 hours. Why? Because you had made the target and you accomplished the target. Your morale will shoot up drastically. This is how strategy comes into the picture. Are you getting the points clear? So, let's talk about the strategy. This strategy is called as 60-30-10 strategy. We have decided how many hours? 5 hours. 60% of 5 hours is 3 hours. 3 hours should be given to the core subjects. Are you getting the points clear? 30% of 5 hours is 1.5 hours. That is 90 minutes. 90 minutes on daily basis should be given to current affairs. And the final strategy is moonshot strategy. That is 10% of 5 hours. It is half an hour. Half an hour on daily basis should be given to answer writing. So let us talk about the core strategy. Hope so you understood the importance of a strategy. Hope so you understood core strategy, near shot strategy and moonshot strategy. Now let us discuss individually. Core strategy. As I've said, 3 hours should be given on daily basis to core subjects like history, geography, polity, economics and so on. So how should we divide our subjects? Because many a time it happens like let me go for studying history, let me go for studying economics, let me go for studying geography, let me go for studying polity, and we land up studying nothing. Isn't that so? Because we do not have a proper strategy, we do not have a proper timetable. So let's go for this sort of a strategy. On Monday and Tuesday, you can go for history and economics. Are you getting the points clear? History is a very lengthy subject. It encompasses ancient India, medieval India, modern India, world history, and culture. Are you getting the points clear? And many a time it happens that there is a myth in the mind of the students that history is more about of a rote memorization. No, my friends, history is not about rote memorization. It is a wonderfully portrayed in the form of events. It is quite easy to remember if you go in a very story format. Wasn't the story of Chandragupta Maurya and Chanakya interesting? Are you getting the points clear? This is history all about. The pattern of studying history should be different. And we are going to follow that pattern in our courses. That is SFC concept, story, fact, and concept. Now, economics. Economics is a subject which is more of an application based subject. Now, in UPSC, if you see the paper, prelims paper of UPSC, the question in the prelims paper are more of an applicative manner. They are more application based. Now, let us understand how. What is CRR? CRR is the amount of money that needs to be kept by the banks with the Central Bank of India. Are you getting the points clear? So the question asked in UPSC exam is, if CRR is increased, what would be the effect on interest rate? Now let us understand. What is CRR? The money kept by the bank with the Central Bank of India, that is RBI. If more amount of money is kept with the RBI, obviously the bank is left with little amount of money. If they are left with little amount of money, their lending power will decrease and automatically the interest rate would shoot up. So interest rate would be high. This is economics. Economics is basically again an application based subject. Are you getting the points clear? Now students might ask the question, sir, why didn't you club history with the geography? It could have been clubbed up with the geography. It could have been clubbed up with polity. Why did you club history with economics? My friend, as I've told you previously, history is a very lengthy subject. Are you getting the points clear? We require to club that subject with a smaller subject, which could be covered very easily. And again, economics is more related to current affairs because economics is quite dynamic in nature. Are you getting the points clear? So on Monday and Tuesday, you can go for history and economics. On Wednesday and Thursday, you can go for geography and environment or disaster management. Now you will say, sir, why have you clubbed geography with environment and disaster management? Everybody knows that geography is correlated with environment and ecology. I'll give you a very small example. Southwest monsoon winds almost govern the climate of India. Are you getting the points clear? Now, southwest monsoon winds is basically divided into two branches, Arabian Sea branch and Bay of Bengal branch. Arabian Sea branch give heavy rainfall in the entire Western Ghat region, and Bay of Bengal branch almost flows parallelly to the east coast of India without giving any rainfall. In the Western Ghat, you will observe high biodiversity. Why the biodiversity is high? Because rainfall is high. So geography is correlated to environment. Geography is correlated to ecology. Are you getting the points clear? And geography is also correlated to disaster management. How? You study the concept of volcanoes. You study the concept of earthquake, landslides, avalanche in physical geography and disaster management. Like disaster management, you are also going to study about the management of these sorts of disaster. So geography can also be clubbed with disaster management. Hope so you are getting the strategy. Moving further. Friday and Saturday go for polity and social issues or ethics. Now, why have clubbed polity with the social issues? For example, you are studying fundamental rights and you are studying Article 17. Article 17 is basically about untouchability. And even if you go to the rural parts of India, even today, you'll observe that untouchability is rampant, even in the 21st century in the rural India. So it is a social issue. So polity can be clubbed up with the social issues. Are you getting the points clear? Education, for that being, health. So all these are part of polity as well as part of social issues. So I personally feel that polity should be clubbed up with social issues. And now ethics. Ethics is again a very dynamic subject. Students feel that ethics is about memorization of concept, memorization of thinkers. It is not that, my friends. Ethics is again a very application based subject. It is a very dynamic subject. It is a very, very interesting subject. Now let us understand how. There is a concept called as wisdom. And wisdom is such a virtue which is very necessary for a civil servant. Now, what is wisdom? Wisdom is also called as buddhimatta or vivek in Hindi. Now, I'll explain wisdom with a small example. There is a small boy. You ask that boy, do not go near the fire or else you will get burnt. That boy will 100% go near the fire. Why? Because it is a human tendency that what things we are being stopped from doing will do that things 100%. Isn't that so? So that boy goes near the fire and he gets himself burnt. Now, initially he had the knowledge that if I go near the fire, I'll get burnt. Now he experienced that. Knowledge plus experience is equals to wisdom. And wisdom is one of the most important quality. It is one of the most important virtue for a civil servant. Are you getting the points clear? Now, ethics is again more about case studies. It is more about application. Now let us understand the case studies. I'll give you a very small example. Suppose you are a district collector of a particular district in Uttarakhand, which is always a disaster prone, say floods. Almost around 10,000 people are stuck up in a flood, and you are a district collector of that particular district. Now, people fall into various categories. Like there are 5 to 6 category of people, like patients in the hospital, women and children, old age person, MLA and his family, chief secretary of the neighboring state, tourists, and hikers. I repeat, patients in the hospital, elders and the what we say elderly people, women and children, MLA and his family, chief secretary of a neighboring state, tourist, and the hikers. Whom would you save first? This is called as ethics. Are you getting the points clear? Here you need to decide your priority in a very logical terms. Are you getting the points clear? Like I'll give you a very small example. In ethics, it is not said that every answer is a what we say perfect answer. You need to justify your answer in a very logical manner. Are you getting the points clear? I'll give you a very logical answer for this. You will too agree with this answer. First of all, I'll save patients in the hospital. Why? Because their social mobility is highly restricted. Secondly, I would save the old age people. Again, why? Because secondly, even their social mobility is restricted. They cannot save themselves during disasters. Third, I'll save women and children. And in the end, finally, I will save the hikers. You know hikers? Hikers are mountaineers. They are already equipped in all sorts of skills. So for time being, they can save themselves. Are you getting the points clear? This is how ethics work. So this is core strategy. So on Monday and Tuesday, go for history and club history with economics. On Wednesday and Thursday, go for geography and club geography with environment or disaster management. On Friday and Saturday, go for polity and club polity with social issues and ethics. I'm not saying that this is a perfect strategy, but at least this strategy can form the fundamental basis for your timetable. Are you getting the points clear? Moving on to the next slide. Near short strategy. 90 minutes should be dedicated to current affairs. Now, I have seen I also have seen this pattern in Delhi when I was an aspirant and preparing for civil services. I've seen this pattern that almost around students go for reading newspaper for 2 to 3 hours, as though they have to edit the entire newspaper and send it back to the editor of the Hindu. Are you getting the points clear? Newspaper, it is said by MK Gandhi. Newspaper should always be read to keep yourself updated. Are you getting the points clear? It should not kill your independent thinking. Read the newspaper just for 45 minutes to 1 hour. Now you will say that, Sir, it is highly impossible to complete the entire Hindu newspaper within 45 minutes because it takes almost around 30 minutes to read the editorial. Are you getting the points clear? Now, my point is there are ample of websites available on YouTube. Unacademy platform provides you the entire summary of the newspaper, not only the Hindu newspaper, Indian Express, PIB, Rajya Sabha TV, Lok Sabha TV, Prasar Bharati News. If your work has been simplified, why boggle up 2 hours or 3 hours on a single newspaper? I'm not saying that you shouldn't read newspaper. You shouldn't read editorial. You should read it, but please stay confined within the time limit because you have more to read with the other subjects as well. So go for reading the newspapers like Hindu and Indian Express for 45 minutes or maximum 1 hour. 30 minutes should be given for watching the videos on Unacademy concerning the current affairs pattern, and 15 minutes should be given to Rajya Sabha TV. Subscribe to Rajya Sabha TV, and there is something called as Big Picture. On Big Picture, seasoned personalities discuss various social issues of India, like mob lynching, women's education, women's health, or health sector in India. These are being discussed by the seasoned personalities. These are being discussed by the dynamic personalities, and it will help you out 100% in your essay strategy. So this is nothing but near short strategy. So 90 minutes on daily basis should be basically given to current affairs. Hope so the points are clear. And one more request, while whenever you're reading the newspaper, many people have habit or many aspirants have habit of going for cuttings of the newspaper. I'm 100% sure you have cut the news, what we say, you have went for that cuttings, but you'll not revisit that cuttings again in your lifetime. That is for sure. Because please do not go for hefty cuttings because you'll just keep on adding up. Are you getting the points clear? So please be confined within the time limit. Moving on to the next slide. This is called as moonshot strategy. I'll give you a very small example. How you develop competence. Again, suppose you have read history and you have read economics. Suppose you have read a topic called as Champaran Satyagraha in history, and you have read a topic called as inflation in economics. In the past 10 years, what all sorts of questions have been asked from Champaran Satyagraha? Go for all that questions. In the past 10 years, what all sorts of questions have been asked concerning inflation? Go and solve these questions. Just 15 to 20 questions, maximum 25 questions of prelims pattern. It will hardly take 20 to 25 minutes. I'm 100% sure this will help you out in the end. How? I'll tell you how. For example, just 2 months before the prelims exam, students go for solving the test series. Within 2 months, they come across approximately around 10,000 questions. Approximately. Okay? Just in 2 months. Now, how you are ahead of the other students? Now, let us understand. You have solved 25 questions on regular basis. Are you getting the points? Like 25 questions on regular basis. 6 days, how many questions? 150 questions. In a month, how many questions? 600 questions. In 10 months, how many questions? 6,000 questions. In a very consistent manner. Are you getting the points clear? 6,000 questions in 10 months. And in the last, what we say, 2 months, 10,000 questions again. Average people have solved 10,000 questions. You have solved totally 16,000 questions. You are already ahead than the other competitors, than the other aspirants. Are you getting the points clear? Strategy always play a major role in the preparation. Consistency again plays a very major role in the preparation. And finally, answer writing. I'll talk about the answer writing. You might have a lot of knowledge. Are you getting the points clear? But that knowledge is highly worthless until and unless you are able to produce that knowledge on a piece of paper. Why? Because the only piece of interaction between you and the examiner is your answer. Neither you nor the examiner know each other. So the only piece of interaction is your answer. Now, answer writing has a very disciplined pattern. You cannot go for in a very haphazard manner. Are you getting the points clear? Now let us understand answer writing all about. Hope so you understood the strategy. Are you getting the points clear? Core strategy, near shot strategy, and moonshot strategy. Now let us understand the answer writing pattern. Whenever you are reading a newspaper, you do not get bored by reading any article. Why? Because the second paragraph is linked to the first one. Third paragraph is linked to the previous two. And in the final paragraph, you'll get the crux of the entire story. But many a times it happens like whenever we read our own answers, we do not understand what it is all about. Isn't that so? Are you getting the points clear? So let us understand a very simplistic pattern of answer writing. So first of all, whenever there is a question, follow three major steps: introduction, main body, and conclusion. I repeat: introduction, main body, and conclusion. Introduction should form the first paragraph, second, third, and fourth paragraph. If you're going for three paragraphs in the main body, second, third, and fourth paragraph basically should be the main content. And in the final paragraph, that is conclusion, that is fourth or fifth paragraph, should be the summary or the crux of the entire answer. Are you getting the points? Introduction, main body, and conclusion. First paragraph introduction, second and third paragraph, or maximum fourth paragraph main body, and conclusion in the final paragraph. Now, never ever directly start writing the main content. Why? Because introduction is always about the background of the question. I'll give you a very small example. Like, as per 2011 census, sex ratio in Haryana has been declined. To improve that sex ratio and to improve the enrollment of girl child into the school, governments came up with a new scheme that is called as Beti Bachao and Beti Padhao scheme. Recently, a social audit, recently, a analysis of that scheme has been done. And as per the analyst, even today the sex ratio in Haryana has not improved. So the question is, now has what we say like this Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme has worked properly or not? So in that case, if the question is asked, has it worked properly or not? So first of all, you have to give introduction. What is introduction? Introduction is always about the background. Are you getting the points clear? What is Beti Bachao Beti Padhao all about? Getting the points clear? And in the main content, in the main body, please highlight what we say, what the question has been asked, why the scheme has not worked out. Hope so you understood the pattern: introduction, main body, and conclusion. Now, why do we land up getting average marks in this exam? Now, let us understand with an example. Many a times we write whatever we know. We never understand the demands of the question. Question is demanding something else, and we are writing something else. Are you getting the points clear? Now, whenever there is a question, and ahead of the question there is something called as discuss. In that case, you have to go for pros and cons. Go for introduction, write advantages and disadvantages in the main body, pros and cons in the main body, and finally go for conclusion. Discuss basically means pros and cons. Then comes elucidate. Elucidate in simple language means clarify. I'll give you a small example. Please read the question which is flashing on your screen. Our system acts very much like a sponge, drawing up all the good things from the bank of Ganges and squeezing them down on the banks of Thames. Ganges, Thames. One aspirant might understand that this is a geography question, or is it the question concerning history? My friend, this is a question concerning history. Now let us understand how. When Europeans came in India, specifically when the Britishers came in India, they forced the peasants of India to cultivate commercial crops. There are two types of agriculture: subsistence agriculture and commercialized agriculture. Subsistence agriculture is like I produce those crops which are important for sustaining my family, and commercial crops are those crops which have high demand in the national and international market. These are also called as cash crops: cashew nuts, tobacco, opium, indigo, cotton, sugarcane, jute, all these are basically commercial crops. So let us understand with an example. When Britishers came in India, they forced our debt-ridden peasants to cultivate cotton. I'm giving you a very small example. They forced our peasants to cultivate cotton because cotton was in high demand in the European market. Now they have said our peasants that before the harvest of the crop, we are going to give you 5 rupees or 10 rupees. I'm giving you an example. Try and understand this. We are going to give you 5 rupees or 10 rupees. But when the crop is ready for the harvest, they are telling that we are only going to give you 1 rupee. If you have to sell it, you can sell it to us. Otherwise, go with whatever you want to do that. Now, peasants are forced to sell to the European planters. Are you getting the points clear? Now, this cotton goes to Manchester or Liverpool. The seeds are separated, the fibers are separated. From there, it goes to London. Are you getting the points clear? From there, it goes to London. And in London, it is made into a manufactured good. It is made into a textile. And again, it comes back to India. The raw material is of India. And the manufactured good is again sold in India. The raw material was purchased at what rupee? 1 rupee. The manufactured good is sold in how many rupees? 10 rupees. Are you getting the points clear? Systematically, India's money was drained out of India. Are you getting the points? In a very systematic manner, in a very methodological way. This drain of wealth from India was highlighted for the first time by Dadabhai Naoroji in his book Poverty and Un-British Rule in India. I take a sponge. I dip this sponge in river Ganges. I I take the sponge out and squeeze the sponge in the river Thames. I drive the all good resources from India and divert the resources in London. This is nothing but drain of wealth. And the question is all about drain of wealth. Did you get the points, my friend? Illustrate means cite an example. I'll tell you what is cite an example. Like I have given you this example. Our system acts very much like a sponge. This statement was given by John Sulvian. Okay. Now, how will I clarify this statement? I'll clarify this statement with the help of an example. So this is nothing but illustrate. Now, enlist. The word list. Are you getting the points clear? Enlist. Now, in the list format, it simply means that you need to write your answer in a point-wise format. You need to write your answer in a bullet format. That is the meaning of enlist. Critically analyze. Now, whenever you are going for a movie, okay, you have two aspects, review and critics. Now, what is review all about? Was the movie boring? Was the movie what we say like slow? Was the movie too fast? How were the songs? How were the action scenes? This is the overall picture of the movie. This is called as review. But what is critics? Critics tries to find out the loopholes in the movie. This is what critically analyze all about. For example, I have given you the example of Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme that it has not worked properly. Are you getting the points clear? So there might be certain loopholes in the implementation of the scheme. Critically analyze. But one thing as an aspirant, you need to remember whenever you are trying to find out the loopholes, whenever you are trying to highlight the negatives, you should also come up with an optimistic roadmap. Are you getting the points clear? You should also come up with a futuristic roadmap. Your approach should be quite optimistic in nature. Hope so the points are clear. Okay? So this is majorly about answer writing. So I'll repeat the things again in short. This is nothing but the core strategy. Hope so everybody understood the core strategy. Okay? This is nothing but strategy for current affairs, which is called as near shot strategy. This is moonshot strategy. This is all about answer writing. Now, whenever you are preparing for civil services, please stay consistent because the study of 10 to 12 hours just for 2 months won't work out. If you're studying for 4 to 5 hours on daily basis for 10 to 12 months, 110% you are going to get good sort of results. You are going to get optimum output from that. So always keep your efforts consistent. Hope so. This session is quite fruitful for you in framing your timetable, in framing your strategy. As I've told you previously, that this is not the only strategy. You might have a different approach, you might have a different strategy, but this strategy can also form the basis for preparing your next timetable. It can also form the basis for preparing your next strategy. Hope so you understood the importance of strategy. Hope so you understood the importance of answer writing. Please subscribe Unacademy and use my code AKOUS. I repeat the code AKOUS. Thank you and have a nice day.